Sick of people at ESPN or SportsCenter who think they have their heads on their shoulders, but they really don't? Well, it's time for the Jimmy the K Sports Show, and we're going to give you the most urgent sports news. Now it's time for the Jimmy the K Sports Show. Sit down, relax, grab a cold one because I'm dousing and burning ESPN live here on the show. Here we go, boys. Woo! Hey y'all, it's me, Jimmy the K here with the Sports Zone, or sponsor the Jimmy the K Sports Zone, sponsored by the All About Sports Zone page. Woo! How are y'all doing this evening? I know it's Tuesday and I wasn't here last week, and y'all are just foaming at the mouth to know what has happened or is going to happen. Well, all kinds of good things can happen in 2 weeks, but those things will be on the back burner because I want to get to you the most urgent sports news of the day. Believe it or not, I'm going to start off. Typically, I start off with about a week full of sports news, and then I go back and then I hit that top story last. But this is so strong of a story that I feel like the network, ESPN, yes, and I'm calling them out. I will use their name, ESPN, several times, needs to be called out. ESPN is nothing but a bunch of panty waist idiots, and that's to put it lightly. Panty waist idiots who are biased towards certain people and unbiased towards uh, towards other people. Now, if many of y'all may not know what I'm talking about. Two stories broke today. Two stories in the sports world. One was that of the name of Chris Carter. I'll get to that shortly. The other name is that of the great pitcher Curt Schilling. Made a tweet, was ousted by ESPN and not let go by the Little League World Series for their coverage. Now, I will read to you shortly the tweet that was brought out by Curt Schilling, and you can decide. You can decide whether or not it was worth being kicked out of the Little League World Series coverage or ESPN's coverage for that matter, compared to that of NFL supposedly great. Chris Carter was never that great of a football player, all right, guys? Chris Carter was mediocre, in my opinion. He was a good football player, but he's not a great. You can't put him up there with the greats. You can't. Chris Carter, and this is publicly going out all over the internet, everything else. You know, two stories trending, and one story is that of Chris Carter. Chris Carter, amongst a bunch of collegiate athletics players, basically told them you need to have a fall guy if you're going to get in trouble. And that went public. That is online. That's out there in the media. Guess what? Those big politically correct people. Oh, did I say politically correct? Because they're not politically correct people over at ESPN decided to pat Chris Carter on the hand and say, Chris, you can't be doing stuff like that. He publicly goes on the show, apologizes, and that's that. Like water over a bridge. Curt Schilling comes out with a tweet a couple of hours ago, 3 at the most, saying, comparing Muslims to Nazis. And I'm going to read you word for word what Curt Schilling put on his Twitter site and let you decide. But was it enough for him to be ousted, to be nailed, to be chained to the wall by ESPN, and they're freaking biased because they're too cotton picking stuck on themselves and think they're great sports channel when really they're a mediocre sports channel compared to this sports show. All right? If ESPN has the ads to go after people like Curt Schilling and Stephen A. Smith, then they should have had the same ads to go after Chris Carter. Period. Hey, I'm laying it out on the table right now. I really don't care because I'm going to send an email with this video to ESPN, and they're probably going to brush it off and be like, oh, blah, 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 just some no name, blasting us. We know what we're doing. Guess what? You're a bunch of bigoted idiots. And, I say bigoted with a very heavy heart because the truth of the matter is, I don't feel like there was discrimination or anything of that sort, because the truth of the matter is they suspended Stephen A. Smith for something that he said. And he's of that same culture that they jumped in bed with, okay? The truth of the matter is Stephen A. Smith admitted it. He was knocked off the show, suspended by ESPN. Instead, Chris Carter does worse. He tells collegiate players that they need to have a fall guy when committing a crime, and he's patted on the wrist like nothing went on. Curt Schilling comes out with this tweet that I am going to read you right now, and he is nailed and killed from the Little League World Series coverage. Curt Schilling, this is exactly what he says. The math is staggering when you get to true numbers. There's a picture at the bottom. It says, it said only 5 to 10% of Muslims are extremists. In 1940, only 7% of Germans were Nazis. How'd that go? And it was a picture of Hitler with his hand raised. Where in any of that article can you see anything wrong with that? He says something comparing Muslims to Nazis, which is 99.9432564% right. And he's kicked out of the Little League World Series. Chris Carter, on the other hand, is telling collegiate players to have a fall guy when committing a crime. Now, you tell me who should have gotten the slap on the wrist and who should have been suspended by the little idiots over there at ESPN because their CEO or the president don't have the nads to go after the right people because they want to jump in the bed with the wrong people. Yeah, ESPN, you've got the nads. I'm calling you out. I will use the word ESPN 4 bajillion times this show because really I don't care, because the truth of the matter is your network is so patent picking, flipping bigoted that it's pitiful. And I can't say that they are racist, because the truth of the matter is I have already said that they can't be contributed as being racist, because the truth of the matter is they suspended Stephen A. Smith for something less of what Chris Carter said. But instead, Chris Carter is still on the network, still kissing the butts of the GMs and the president over at ESPN. And there was something a lot worse that I was about ready to say, but I bit my tongue. And just jumping in bed with Chris Carter. Why? Because they're worried about a lawsuit from low and mighty Chris Carter, or they're worried that he might shoot him up. Oh, he might shoot us. He might get a fall guy for him. Oh, please. The pussies over there at ESPN, excuse my language, but I just call them pussies. I can't think of anything lighter to say about those idiots. They piss me off. The fact that Curt Schilling's knocked off of the Little League World Series for something that was as little as comparing Muslims to Nazis, and you have Chris Carter over on the same network with video all over the network of him going amongst collegiate players and saying you need to have a fall guy when committing a crime. Now you tell me, out there, Jimmy the K Sports Show fans, people that are followers of the show, you tell me which one is worse? Going amongst collegiate players and telling them you need to have a fall guy, and then publicly admitting, oh, I would never say that, but there's video of him saying it, or a stupid little tweet by Curt Schilling comparing Muslims to Nazis. It's your call, guys. What's worse? What's worse? I'll tell you what's worse. What's worse is the fact that ESPN has jumped into the beds of the wrong people, and they continue to do it. That's why the network continues to go to the crapper and will continue to go to the crapper until somebody gets it out of the crapper. Okay? And that's about as light as I can put it. I could have used all kinds of other words right there, but chose not to because I try keeping this show as family friendly as possible because I know there are possibly young people watching the show that will hear me say this or hear me say that, and emails will come to the show or they will confront me and say, hey, maybe not a good idea for you to say that. Truth of the matter is, I realize that. So I try my best as a host, knowing that there are young people out there following the show, not to be so blunt. But there are some things like this, young people, and this is definitely something that if you're a parent, yeah, after that last little rant, you may want to get the kids out of the room. You don't want your kids repeating certain words. I understand that, but this is definitely not something that is a segment that your kids need to be listening to. And I probably should have told you that at the head of the show, but the truth of the matter is ESPN has jumped into the bed with the wrong people, and they continue to do it. Their network has continued to lose ratings over the last year to 2 years, and they continue to fall. Their numbers are staggering. That's why they keep having a rollover of hosts, of people that they can't keep in there, that keep jumping out, that keep getting fired, that keep coming back. Is because the fact that ESPN just doesn't know how to manage right from wrong. You know, So here's the thing. If I'm ESPN, I suspend Chris Carter. I don't tell him you go on the network and apologize and that's that. Tonight, after I'm done with my show or whatever I do over there at ESPN, I confront Chris Carter and say, hey, you've been suspended 1 month. You know, Going out there publicly telling collegiate players, young players out there that they need a fall guy for your crimes is not something that we want to be solicited with. I urge you as sports fans, and I'm doing the same thing. A matter of fact, I think I'm going on right after the show. I'm going to email the network there at ESPN and let them know. Let them know how I truly feel about this. Um, Email ESPN. I'll be very kind, and once I email ESPN's head people to share it on the All About Sports Zone page, we're going to nail them. We're going to nail them with this show. We're going to nail them with our emails. We're going to nail them with every aspect that we can. Why? Because this show is all about good and all about getting the good away or the bad out of the good. So, with that being said, it's your call. It's your call. I'm going to tell you what my take is here on it here shortly. Nick Shoemake, a follower of the show, great guy, basically read it and said he had no problems with the tweet, honestly. And, I replied back, neither do I. What he posted was the truth. And if ESPN has the NAS to pull Stephen A. Smith and now Curt Schilling, what about Carter? This politically correct bullcrap has to go. And basically tell them to tune into the show because we're putting we're taking off the gloves right here. We're taking off the gloves. By no means would I ever do anything stupid like that. That being said, your take on that story. I want to know your take. I'll put this video up on the All About Sports Zone page. on Facebook. It'll be up on Twitter as well. Um, it will be hashtagged with ESPN, hashtag Chris Carter, hashtag um, Curt Schilling. So that's my take on it. What's your take? You can go back, watch the show, comment on the All About Sports homepage what your take is on the tweet there by Curt Schilling. Chris Carter's take. What would you do? Stuff to that aspect. Along the lines of lighter sports news, if you are a Texas fan, a Texas baseball fan, you should be happy. But if you're the Astros fan, you better be biting your nails because you better be watching out, Houston Astros, because the Texas Rangers are nipping at your, or are knocking at your door, and they are only 3.5 games back. So, with that being said, this division for Texas teams is going to get pretty tight. What other news do I want to go over? I want to definitely go over the AP polls. I'll definitely skip over the fact that Adrian Peterson stated that he was uh, the LeBron James of the NFL. Pretty funny. Boomer Sooner. I'm a Sooner fan. If you're an OSU fan, I'm sorry. OS boo to me. Um, sorry, guys. It's tough love. Boomer Sooner. Uh, but we'll definitely look at the AP polls. I'll give you my take on the AP polls as well. Um, and from there, we'll move on from there. How's that for you guys? I definitely want to go a little bit lighter. We're going to stay on the topic of baseball. Nobody commented on this on the All About Sports Zone page, but I asked, who's your pick to win the World Series? Right now, and this was a week ago, my pick would have been the Toronto Blue Jays, and they still are. Until they can prove otherwise, they are the hottest team in baseball since the All-Star break. Um, definitely want to talk about. Okay, I definitely want to answer a question that was brought up to me by a friend of mine, Blake Fitzpatrick, a good friend of mine, a sports fan. Um, about that, the Houston Astros, Mike uh, Fiers or Fiers, I have no idea how you pronounce that. If you're a Houston fan watching, maybe you can help me pronounce it. Uh, Pitched a no hitter a couple of games ago. Um, within 6 hours of the game, uh, there was the Los Angeles Dodgers said that Fiers had pine tar on his hat, and Blake Fitzpatrick wanted to know what my take on that is. Uh, you know, basically, I've said this all the time on this sports show, and I'm going to continue to say it. If you can't play a sport without cheating, then you shouldn't play it, period. You know, somebody's going to tell me, well, every sport has cheaters, blah, blah, blah. Well, the truth of the matter is, I know there are many athletes out there, and there are many athletes out there cheating. But I also know that there are many athletes out there that don't cheat. My take on the pine tar thing is, I know Major League Baseball is not going to take the no hitter away from Fiers. Um, it's just never happened. In the history of baseball, that's never happened. Um, they can pay more close attention to winning pitches, maybe, and maybe they will. But do I see them taking it away? No, they're not. What's my take on pine tar? It's cheating, one. But why do I think that Los Angeles is so hell bent on it, so to speak? Probably the fact of the PEDs. I think you know players have it in their head that if pitchers can use pine tar to cheat, then why can't we use PEDs? And that's the logic that I definitely want to use is you know those hitters are going to be thinking the same thing. If he can use pine tar, then why shouldn't I be able to use PEDs? And somebody's going to go, well, they're two different things. No, they're both used to cheat. That's the same thing. So that's the answer to your question. And any cheating to any form to me is cheating, and it's not worth it. Maybe that's why I'm not an athlete. I never used steroids to play baseball. I played baseball until I was 14, 15 years old. Was good enough at it, you know, but it never felt like I was good enough to play in high school. And the fact that I never wanted to have a broken bone, and I knock on wood. Hopefully this is wood. Um, I had never had a broken bone, so that was the reason why I didn't play sports in high school or whatever. I played baseball until I was 15, and never once did cheat. Period. If the coaches wanted me to do something to cheat, it was like screw you. It's not going to happen. If you want to cheat, fine, but I'm not going to do it. It's just not the way it goes around here. Alrighty, I promised you the AP polls that have come out, and I'm going to get to that story dead last. This will be the last one of the night, and give you my take as it's loading. Here we go. The preseason top 25 poll was released. This is the top 25 poll as of right now. Again, I said on the page that I agreed with most, but some are overrated. I'm just going to go through 1 through 25. 1 Ohio State, TCU 2, 3 Alabama, 4 Baylor, Michigan State 5, Auburn 6, Oregon 7, 8 USC, 9 Georgia, 10 Florida State, 11 Notre Dame, Clemson 12, UCLA 13, LSU 14, Arizona State 15, 16 Georgia Tech, 17 Ole Miss, 18 Arkansas, 19 Oklahoma, Wisconsin 20, Stanford 21, 22 Arizona, Boise State 23, 24 Missouri, 25 Tennessee. That's rounding out your top 25 preseason AP poll. Where I think this poll is a little off is in that 18 to 25 range. Do I think Arkansas is worse than is better than the Oklahoma Sooners? No. Do I think Oklahoma's better than Wisconsin? No. Do I think Stanford should be 21st? No. I think Stanford should probably be in that 18 to 20 range. Boise State, probably 25th. Missouri's probably right. Tennessee's probably up around 23. Arizona, 24. Like I said, I agree with some of this. I disagree with some. That's only the preseason polls. The big polls don't come out until, I believe, week 8. And those are the big polls that come out. With that being said, who do you hope wins the national title this year? Are you an Ohio State fan? Are you a TCU fan? Maybe an Oklahoma fan, OSU fan? Ohio State, that is, not Oklahoma State, because we all know, are you even in the top 25? I'm kidding, guys. Don't jump off when I say that. You know I love you. Who's your favorite team out there? Maybe it's USC. Give us a shout out. You know how to get in touch with the show. Three simple ways to get in touch with the show. 3 simple ways. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com and search engine All About Sports Zone. Find us right there at the top. You can like us on Twitter at JimmyKersey1. That's one word. Or you can email your questions, concerns, comments, arguments to the show at allaboutsportszone, that's one word, at gmail.com. And until next time, you want to know something? I feel so cotton picking good about this show that I feel so good that I'm going to leave you with a little bit of music. Why? Because I feel like I just lit up ESPN a little bit earlier this show, and I feel kind of pretty confident about that. Um, so, with that being said, guys, you want to know something? Do you really want to know something? Thank you, guys, for tuning into the Jimmy the K Sports Show, sponsored by All About Sports Zone. Until next Tuesday, I am your host. Remember to tweet, like us on Facebook, or email us. 3 simple ways. Kicking ESPN's butt. I'm Jimmy K. Peace out.